Hey RC enthusiasts, time for another RC Guru Bench talk about technical stuff that might be interesting to you if you want to set up a vehicle for off-road use. Okay, this is basically me just sharing what I've learned from running well over 100 batteries through this particular platform, tuning it, testing it, improving it, breaking it, fixing it, and finally getting to the point where it's virtually unbreakable. This is an incredibly durable, tough platform for doing any kind of off-roading that you might want, whether it's rock crawling, just hopping over logs, blasting through leaves, trying to climb dirt hills, splashing through puddles, wading through creeks. All of that kind of activity is what this vehicle has been built for. It's been built to handle this kind of terrain. We're talking leaves a foot deep, twigs everywhere, logs falling everywhere, vines, stuff always wrapping up in it, and it doesn't break. So that's why I feel it's worth sharing the knowledge, because it's relatively inexpensive to get yourself an old style AX10 Scorpion off of eBay or off of a forum like RC Crawler, and in the for sales, if you have a star, you can check out their for sales, and they have great deals, and you can pick up something really cheap. Or maybe somebody who's upgrading, who's also into the hobby. If you have friends that are crawlers, they are always upgrading, and they'll have handoffs, and this is what mostly this is. And unlike all my other rigs, which I've purpose built, I've designed and built them from scratch, where I've tried to make every single link, every chassis part, everything except the axles and electronics, I've made it myself. This is completely cobbled together from parts that you can obtain yourself, either from the kits or from your parts bin or from eBay, or you can actually special order them. So this is for somebody who doesn't have special tools, who can't cut and thread and tap links, who can't cut chassis plates. This is for you guys that just can cobble together stuff. Okay, that's pretty cool. I've gotten an overview here of physical dimensions and weights, and the reason for that is that the way a vehicle performs is very much dependent on its size, shape, and weight. If you want to thrash around at a good speed and you don't want to burn up a brushed motor, it's got to be a lightweight vehicle. This vehicle, with nothing, as I'm looking at it right now, it's about 3 pounds 3 ounces. Okay. Each one of these tire wheel assemblies, which is not something that you can just necessarily find exactly like this, because I made these from XR10 rims. I cut them down. I made them 1 inch. These are shaved HB Rover white dots with Proline foams in them, and Crawler Innovation foams in them, front and back different. These weigh about 6 ounces each. This is a relatively lightweight wheel. You don't want to put lead in here. You don't want to make these heavy. You don't want to have big, heavy, necessarily giant, heavy aluminum rims or steel rims, as cool as they may look. Your rotating mass should be as low as possible to put as little wear and tear on your drivetrain as possible. Okay, so you can start by getting lightweight tires that are relatively narrow and relatively tall, and these are going to overcome almost all the weaknesses of your vehicle, because it's going to give you that added clearance and that added grip and traction that you need. So you get good tires, good foams, good rims, and there's a lot of different ones. A lot of people like the Pitbull Growlers, or there's all kinds of different sizes. These are 2.2 inch rims. I like tall tires because I've got a lot of stuff to get over. If you want to have a more scale appearance and your terrain is a lot more groomed than mine, you might want to be able to go with a smaller tire, make it look more like a real, car. I'm just interested in having fun with it, and it kind of does look real, not really, but it is fun, and these work well in almost everything that I've tried. They work when they're wet, they work when they're muddy. They work on the rocks really well. They work on dirt and sand and mud and leaves. They float right over the leaves because they're so big and puffy. They don't dig in, don't get you buried. So those, to me, are ideal tires because they're light, they're purpose-built, and you can find things similar to this without having to make them yourself. You can find lightweight plastic glue-on rims that are like 1 inch wide. You can find good tires and foams on eBay or online, a bunch of different hobby stores. Now the second thing is, this is one of the easiest ways to overcome, if you're not a total klutz, easiest ways to overcome another weakness on the AX10, SX10 chassis, and that is that when you start trying to put big tires and you're trying to turn, you're going to be binding into everything. You're going to be smashing into your body, you're going to be smashing into your chassis, your shocks, everything. So you put a widener on there, and the widener is a relatively cheap part. You know, you get 4 of these and you'll never look back, and all of a sudden you've got that much more room before your wheel is running into anything, and it makes it more stable for side hilling. So the wideners are pretty much mandatory. I couldn't even run this deep of an offset. Now if you had a flat offset, you wouldn't need wideners so much. Flat offset and tires that don't stick out so much, and you could get away with running no wideners. But the wideners are just an easy, cheap way to increase the track width and make the vehicle work better. When it comes to things that you absolutely must do, pretty much, to the AX10 or any axial platform that's shaft driven, is the plastic drive shafts are useless. If you do any kind of hard driving, you will destroy them, and the quickest, fastest way to stop being frustrated is to just pony up the $40-something and get a pair of these MIP shafts. These will last forever, literally. You'll never have to replace them, never have to worry about them again. Inside here, completely stock gears, just normal regular bearings, nothing extraordinary, just regular dog bones, cups. Okay, the reason for this is, unless you're going to do the XR10 mod with XR10 universals and try and go for absolutely crazy steering, which doesn't work at high speeds, it only works at extreme low crawling speeds, there's really no point in it. This is enough to get you around in the woods. You may have to do a few reverses, go back and forth a few times, but this isn't a comp crawler. It's not. It's a trailing vehicle. And there's different ways you can set up your front linkages. You can set up your front linkage so you have more leverage getting out here, but with these kind of arms you get less and less what I call zero Ackerman, is when this and this line up. That makes both of the tires turn the same. So when you come in here, you've got more of, in a sense, a crawling type setup, so that when you're turned, your tires are turned almost the same as compared to the next notch out, where they're turned more for like high-speed turning. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're racing around in the dirt, you might want to set up so you're out here. But for what I'm doing and the kind of work I'm doing, a lot of times I'm moving slowly, I'm trying to maneuver around things. I like it set up here where it makes the wheel steer a little bit more. Now you can put different arms on here that are zero Ackerman, but what's going to happen is you're going to destroy your dog bones and cups when you try and get that extra steering. You're suddenly allowed a whole bunch more steering. Right now you're stopped right when those will bind up. You know, you go much further than that, they're going to start jumping out, and then it's just going to blow everything apart. Another thing you should really consider is aluminum knuckles. Even if you use plastic C-hubs, plastic axle housings, everything else, you're going to want these, because these take a lot of abuse, and it's just something you're going to have to look into. Another thing you've got to get is a stout servo. You can't use a wimpy servo for a vehicle with large tires that's moving at high speeds and jumping around over stuff. Okay. You've got to have a stout servo. Everything's been waterproofed. You can get away with a cheap VSC if you're not looking for a lot of precision. You can get away with a relatively inexpensive brush motor. This is a Brood Intensity. It was like a $44 something expense. Well worth it. Awesome. I'm running a 22-tooth Robinson Racing Products pinion on there with an 87-tooth spur, Okay, so I got a lot of wheel speed, and it moves along pretty good. Well, look at the dimensions again. You guys can pause the screen if any of this stuff is interesting to you. Okay. It's a comp legal, in a sense, vehicle in terms of length and width, and it has a shell, and I could imagine compete in sportsman events, but it's not comp ready in any way. It doesn't have enough steering, doesn't have enough steering servo, it doesn't have a good enough ESC, it's too tall, it's too heavy, but for blasting around, works great. That's a 2200 and that's a 1000. Both those are Turnigy Nanotechs. Great batteries. Alright guys, I hope that was interesting to you. I hope you can make use of it. If you like this sort of thing, subscribe.